mission and throughout this search, as well as members of our community, both community leaders, faith leaders, and business leaders who are here at this time. In December 2019, less than 30 days after I was elected as mayor of the city of Montgomery, I was selected to attend a new mayor seminar at the Harvard Kennedy School of Government. And they selected a handful of mayors to come to talk about the transition and to talk about things that you only learn, apparently, if you're a mayor. And they had several former mayors as well as current mayors there who I think most would deem successful in their tenure. And there was a lot of knowledge and a lot of pearls of wisdom that was shared. But one of the biggest takeaways that I got during that symposium was that there are a lot of important hires, there are a lot of important decisions that a mayor must make. But there's none that's more important than who you hire for your police chief. That's something that stuck with me because it was echoed by several mayors, both current and mayors who had completed their tenures, about the importance of that, even relative to the chief of staff, finance director, and any other cabinet position that was people may seem to be as important. And I took away something from that conversation because it just showed how much importance people put on who is serving as your police chief and the importance of that person in leadership. And as it was said to us then, that person is probably the second most visible person besides the mayor to most of your communities. And because of that, this is something that we have taken a global approach to selecting the best leader. That was our approach when we announced Interim Chief Harris as our interim because we understood the importance of that role, and that's been our approach throughout this process. While this process may have taken a little bit longer than we would have liked, we did not want to be held captive to the calendar. We wanted to make sure that we got this decision right because we realized that public safety is the number one issue in this community. It's the number one issue in my administration, and it's something that not only we hear about probably more than anything else in the mayor's office, our city council, and many of our supporters and many of our informal advisors, if you will, remind us of. Those who are in the community who are hearing and leading change at a different level than where we are. And so I start with that backdrop because just last Monday, I got the opportunity to take part at the National League of Cities Congressional Conference to speak with mayors, a select group of mayors from around the country. New York City Mayor Eric Adams, Houston, Texas Mayor Sylvester Turner, Oklahoma City Mayor David Holt, Jackson Mayor Chokwe Lumumba, and so many others that were part of what was a closed-door panel. And it was around tackling violence and tackling crime in the COVID era and how different cities, regardless of size or scope or scale, were dealing with that. And it was very interesting listening to our public safety co-chair, Ras Baraka, mayor of Newark, New Jersey, and others kind of speak to some of the tactics they were using. And many of them talked about wraparound service and talked about community policing. And we talked about tactics that we could implement in the 21st century policing model. But without getting into specifics, there was also the need for us to talk about things to reinstill confidence in our respective communities. Didn't matter what coast they were on, didn't matter the size of the city, all were seeing and had seen an uptick in violent crime. All were trying to look for solutions of ways to reinstill confidence in a time when people receive more than 300% more information in a day than we did just 10 years ago, and when most of that information is negative. And so when you think about where that puts people, it puts a level of anxiety and unease on people that they already would have, but it just brings it more to the forefront. And out of those conversations, we shared some solutions and things that we'll be releasing in a report coming up very soon. But again, the conversation went back to leading our police departments and working with our communities and how to build that trust and transparency. And so today has been really a culmination of what has been a search for a best-in-class leader. And I think that we have found that. I firmly believe that we have a best-in-class leader, and that's not at the expense of anyone who applied for this position or any of the finalists who we interviewed and who came before our public committee. It just speaks to the level of expertise and experience that we were looking for. And so throughout this process, it has been one where we have leaned on organizations like the U.S. Conference of Mayors, the African American Mayors Association, the National League of Cities. We bounced ideas off of the aforementioned Mayor Sylvester Turner, Tampa Mayor Jane Castor, the only former police chief and major city mayor in office at this time, former Mayor Steve Benjamin, Columbia, South Carolina, Birmingham Mayor Randall Woodfin, and Tuscaloosa Mayor Walt Maddox. And certainly I say the last two because they were probably the most important. One was direct and one was indirect, and that is New Orleans Mayor LaToya Cantrell, who had very positive statements about our incoming police chief and had strong statements about his leadership and his capability in leading in New Orleans, both from her time as a council member to her time as mayor. And then today, I got the opportunity to get an unexpected phone call as I was leaving the downtown YMCA, and I got a call from an ex-mayor or a former mayor of New Orleans and a former lieutenant governor of Louisiana, and that was Mitch Landrieu. And he called me, and I thought he was calling me because I was asking him about some infrastructure money, Charlie, and how we could get our hands on some of that. But he called me to tell me that I had gotten one of his guys. And I told Captain Albert, it's not very often that a mayor once removed will call and say something unexpected or really unprovoked and say, you know what, you got a good one. And he was very positive about Darryl Albert's time during his tenure for 2 terms as mayor of New Orleans. And he said, you guys are going to work very well together. Your community is going to benefit, and you all are going to see a lot of positive things. And he also told me that Darryl Albert could have been chief of New Orleans, Louisiana, the NOPD. And he said, you know, he was in our finalist group, and, you know, you have to choose one. You can't choose them all. And so it's also something for us, I think, that 2 former mayors, or a former mayor and a current mayor of New Orleans both speak very highly of your leadership and the service of you and your family to the NOPD. And so I think that speaks, again, not only to the performance, but also to the character and to the leadership that you have. And I did ask former Mayor Landrieu, Charlie, if we could get our hands on some of that infrastructure money. And he told me that he called me back and we talked a little bit more about how we need to go about doing that. So I couldn't let that call go without making an ask. But that said, it was great just to take that call from him as he is now working for the Biden administration. Again, I shared with him that I didn't call him because I knew he was working with governors around the country about how to allocate infrastructure dollars through the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, and I didn't want to bother him, but for him to call, I think, says something again about, as a testament to what you have done and the type of leadership that you all have shown throughout your time in New Orleans. And so with that, I want to say that on behalf of our city and the residents here, we're grateful to have someone like Darryl Albert, who has 32 years of experience in law enforcement, 15 of which involve serving or leading the SWAT team. He is an Army veteran with 2 sons, Dario and Darren, and his wife, Chantal, who is also a police officer with the New Orleans Police Department. And most recently, Darryl served as commander of the NOPD Special Operations Division. He managed SWAT incidents, high-risk warrant service, major emergencies and disasters, civil unrest, and more. He formerly served as deputy superintendent of NOPD for field operations and investigation and support bureaus. In this position, he was in charge of all of the police department patrol divisions, overseeing most of the agency's officers. When Darryl oversaw the NOPD Major Crimes Unit, the murder rate in New Orleans was reduced drastically. As district commander, homicides dropped to a never-before-seen single-digit year-end reduction while increasing neighborhood engagement and modernizing his district. As deputy of field operations, murders dropped citywide from 2011 through 2014 by well over 25%. He's also a proponent of 21st century policing, promoting effective crime reduction strategies in tandem with building public trust. He knows how to bond with the community and to bring together the partnership between law enforcement and the community to make sure there's an understanding and everyone also has a belief that they can work together. He's overseen areas in New Orleans from the Garden Districts to the Callio Projects. And so he's familiar with working with those who have the biggest bank accounts to those who have no bank accounts. And he's handled all of them adeptly. He understands how to deal with large tourism events. He understands how to deal with major disasters. He understands the inflection point that many cities are in right now and how they turn around things in the post-George Floyd environment, how we build that trust and transparency with grassroots leaders, and also how do we make sure that we support our men and women in uniform. He understands that because his wife has almost 25 years of police service. His late brother also was a police officer, and he brings with that a law enforcement understanding. But understanding family is important to him as well, and hearing things from their side and their perspective is very relevant to him. And so it's important, as I could tick off a number of other accolades, that we believe and we are confident that not only is he the right leader for this community externally, but he's the right leader for this department internally. He stressed to me the benefit in making sure that there's a deep bench and that you mentor young officers and that you have the confidence of the officers in uniform, not just because you have the power of position, but because they have the belief in your purpose. That's very important to us because it's that type of commitment, it's that type of confidence that we not only need to have internally, but we want to have externally throughout our city and throughout this region. The business community, the faith community, the grassroots community, and those who feel disconnected from our police department, not because of anyone's leadership or not because of anyone's administration, just because of things that they see, hear, and do every day. He understands how to bridge that gap. And so we're very excited to be here today. We're glad that he understands the importance of working with state law enforcement, the benefit and the potential of federal law enforcement partnerships that we can maximize here in Montgomery, and the impact that has not only on the public health of a community, but also the public wealth of a community. And so those things are very important. And so I just want to say that we are glad that this search is now complete, that Darryl is here with his wife, Chantal, and his son was not able to make it, but also that we have, again, Interim Chief Harris, who has really stood in this breach for a number of months and handled this with professionalism all the way through. And that says something about her, and that says something about her commitment, not only to the police department, but to the community as well. And so with that said, at this time, I'd like to introduce the next Chief of Police for the Montgomery Police Department, Darryl Albert. Thank you.
Montgomery, thank you. This has been a good process, and I want to say it's going to be very rewarding for all of us. To Mayor Reed, thank you very much for the trust and confidence in selecting me to lead the men and women of the Montgomery Police Department. It's truly an honor. The responsibility bestowed upon me to take this position and to lead the men and women in these crime-fighting strategies will not be taken lightly. We will be hard on crime, but we'll be kind on community. I say again, to the citizens of the city of Montgomery, we will increase avenues of communication. We will build that public trust. We will forge relationships. And we will make the city of Montgomery a better place to live, work, and play. I know that family plays a huge part in everything that we do, everyone in this room. And the support from my family has been tremendous. The support from my colleagues, friends, and coworkers that helped me get to this point today have been tremendous. I take all of that with me here as I join these men and women to my left in leading the Montgomery Police Department. So Mayor Reed, as we met before and talked and discussed strategies, I do have a strategy. I do have a plan. I do have a vision and a focus to come here and deal with the issues that's been plaguing this community. We will not be light on crime. We will be tough on crime. But again, kind on community. So Mayor Reed, thank you very much. Mr. Chip Hill, you've come a long way in helping me every step of the way. And to your administration and staff, y'all have done a phenomenal job. Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I see some of the folks from the public panel here. I see you back there. I'm excited to be here. My family's excited to be here. We can't wait to hit the ground running. So thank you, Mayor Reed. It's a pleasure. I'm excited. Can't wait to get going. Can't wait to meet the staff, to get going. Ramona Harris, I've heard a lot about you. We're going to be working very closely together, and the entire MPD staff. So thank you very much. Mayor Reed, thank you again.
If there are any questions at this time for either myself, Darryl, we may ask those and we'll address them to the best we can. And I also want to recognize, I didn't see Councilman Pruitt over there. I didn't know he was our sound engineer for today. So Councilman, I'm sorry I missed you earlier. And Councilor Johnson, thank you for coming in. I want to make sure I didn't miss anybody else that wasn't sitting right here. But thank you all as well. We have any questions? Yes, sir. Oh, I'm sorry. Come right there. Yes, sir.
You know, violent crime is up across the nation. The mayor talked about it a minute ago. We see increases across the country, but there's strategies to address violent crime across any of our communities. You know, partnerships is number one. Having that transparency and the community support is how we get there. You know, local, state, and federal support, that building that collaboration between all entities and all agencies is how we go after bad guys. You know, I'm looking at federal indictments for gun violence. We're looking at state charges. You know, I mean, we're not going to be light on it. We're going to go and look at RICO cases, you know, conspiracy cases. That's how we're going to address the violent crime. That's how we're going to put bad folks in jail. And that's going to send a message to those who's thinking about violating the law. I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, absolutely. My plan to build trust in the community and public's trust is through transparency, you know, being open, honest, in our levels of communication. Having our officers, from myself down, being out in the public, being visible, being part of the community, being part of the decision-making process, being part of the crime-fighting efforts. You know, bringing the community in, giving them a seat at the table. You know, when Mayor Reed and I sat and spoke, that's one of the things I talked about, allowing the community a seat at the table so that we can build relationships. Sir? I appreciate that. And when I said, you know, kind to the community and hard on crime, we have good folks here in Montgomery. There's no doubt, you being here, the folks that's in this room, many that work, live, and play here, good community members. But those who want to take that and do bad things with it, we're not going to have room for them. We're not going to tolerate it. There is no room for those who want to violate public trust, those who want to violate the law, and those who want to prey on the innocent.
If I can say one other thing to that, Ms. Elkins, and I think that's a relevant point. It's important for us to understand that we know that there has to be a balance. And one of the things that we discuss in our conversations and throughout the process, and I'm glad to say that, we had a public-facing panel with former law enforcement officers and leaders, some of who are here, as well as community leaders, some of who are here, faith leaders, some of whom are here, and everyone came to the same agreement independently that Darryl was the number one candidate. And that was because it was a unique opportunity for us to have someone with combined leadership of 32 years, but also who had done it at various levels in a major city. And when we think about some of the issues we have major crime problems. And we have to understand that the criminal element is adapting, and we have to adapt with that. And short of, his experience and background in that, I think one of the things that really stuck out to us was understanding the importance of working with community leaders, working with faith leaders, but building the partnerships through things that we have been doing here with community policing, but also making sure that people understand the consequences of their actions. Again, I go back to last Monday's closed-door meeting, so I can't get into all that was said by several of those mayors, but all the mayors in that room agreed that there's got to be a different tactic that's used in our communities to create that balance. We understand the challenges that our men and women are dealing with, the enormous hours they're working, the intense stress that they're under. So there has to be that support there for them as well. But we have to make sure that in our community we understand the crisis that exists because of crime, and that we understand, again, that the health and wealth issue that it is, because people who can leave do leave. No one wants to worry about what may happen to them when they step out on their front porch. But we have to be just concerned about those who cannot leave, who can't afford to leave. And that's what Darryl has shared with me, and some of the things that they did to not only reduce violent crime and some of his areas of supervision throughout his career, but also some of the things they did to build those partnerships in the community as well. And once you get out there and you explain and people understand that the folks who are wearing these badges aren't the bad people. The bad people are probably less than 10%, and I would say probably closer to 5% of who's creating most of the havoc. But I think with the ideas that he has about bringing on state and federal charges, that changes the game. It's not as easy for you to get in and get right back out on bail with a federal charge. Those are going to be things that we're going to pursue. And those are things that we're going to be very deliberate about, and making sure that if you're here to contribute to the well-being of this community, we welcome you. We want more of you. But if you're here to take from others that are, then those are the people who are going to have a target on their back. And we have an experienced leader who understands that there are a multiplicity of ways to get to those people and to make examples out of some, maybe to convince others.
So what brought me to Montgomery, policing have changed over the past few years, and a lot of seasoned and tenured police chiefs around the country are retiring. They're just getting out of it. They're not willing to go a step further. So there's young leadership out there. There's new ideas out there. There's new ways of doing policing, and the mayor spoke about that when he was with that conference of mayors just recently. They talked about that. But what really made Montgomery appealing to me is, New Orleans, 280 miles to the west, a great southern city. Montgomery's a great southern city. Civil rights mecca. We have challenges in New Orleans similar to what happens here in Montgomery. So the similarities in the two cities were there. The crime is similar. So when I looked at, everywhere from the East Coast to the West Coast, when Montgomery came up, that's it. Montgomery, here we come. This is a great opportunity. It's a great city. Look, you have a great police department over here, accredited police department. That says a lot about that police department being accredited. Only about 5% of the agencies across the country are accredited. They've come a long way, and this department is accredited. And not only that, when we talk about 21st century policing and what that means, years ago when President Obama formed that commission of academics, scholars, law enforcement professionals, and they started looking at ways to better law enforcement. The document was the 21st century policing, and we're going to go through all 6 tenets of that 21st century policing model, and that it's going to all be inserted right here in the city of Montgomery. So you're going to see some change. Sometimes change is a little slow. I told the mayor before, I said, I like 2 meetings on a product. I don't like to drag my feet on things. We're going to be moving fast, and I want to see some results. And I think with this team that we have to my left, we're going to be able to get there. Ma'am? I'm sorry, ma'am. I couldn't quite hear you. My plans for misdemeanors versus felonies. Misdemeanors often are just the beginning or the lead or the pathway to felonies. We're going to look at each and every one of them. And that's actually one of the parts that came up, one of the conversations we had in the public panel when I looked at examining misdemeanor charges versus felony charges. Bottom line is when you're a victim, you're a victim. Whether you're a victim of a felony or a victim of a misdemeanor. Folks that violate individuals and violate the law are going to be treated with due process. They're going to be treated as they need to be for violating the crime. Committing crimes and violating the law. The thing with, felonies, of course, we want to put felons where they belong. We want to give them due process, go through the court proceedings, and then if in fact they're found guilty, they go to jail. Misdemeanors, same thing. There's lower level misdemeanors that may require a citation and follow-up, and then there's higher level misdemeanors that will not require a citation and follow-up. They will require jail time.
Yes, sir.
Well, I'll say I know Chief Ramona Harris did a great job in increasing morale here in the police department, and we're going to continue that. Having those meetings with the police department, having the meetings with the officers that serve here, and showing fairness, transparency, and cooperation is how you get there. A lot of times we have good policy. I talked about this with the public panel. Police departments have great policy, but if they're not understood, then folks get caught up in the policy that they don't quite understand. Making all of our policies clear, and making sure everyone understands what the expectations are, and then following through with all of the command staff, having everyone accountable from the chief down. And a lot of times we put policy out, we put messages out, and it doesn't reach the bottom where it needs to. So we're going to ensure that the message is translated all the way down to the bottom where it needs to be, and then follow. And we'll give opportunities to discuss and to modify as necessary. Internal and external stakeholders are going to play a key part in that as we examine and as we do an overall overview of the police department, its policies and its processes. And as we evaluate, we'll make changes as necessary.
Well, listen, I want to thank everyone again for their concern about the city of Montgomery, for the work that all of you put in, from all of you in uniform, who put your life on the line every day to protect and serve this community, to those who help us implement some of the progress that we want to see, to our grassroots and community leaders, all of you who keep us informed about things that we may not otherwise know, we may not otherwise hear. I want to thank all of those who serve in this administration and those who serve in other facets of the community, from business to philanthropy, and those who care about this city and want to see it be the best that it can be. I firmly believe that if you choose to be here and you want to see us grow, then you have to be willing to sacrifice. You have to be willing to share some of the responsibility. And I think by looking at all the people who have come out today, we see a lot of people that are doing just that. And without many of you, we could not be the type of community that we are, whether you're elected or whether you're selected. We're glad that you care enough and you're interested in what we're doing. One of the things that I've shared with my cabinet that I hope will also trickle over to some other decisions that have to be made in this community, in particular with our public schools, is we have to do everything best in class. It's no longer good enough to do things just to get by. If it's not best in class, then we shouldn't be doing it. And I think by taking the approach that we have in trying to find the best in class leader, not just police chief, but leader, has brought us to this point. And those are things that we have to continue to do from our perspective here at City Hall. And I hope that even as it relates to our public schools choosing a new superintendent, they will choose a best-in-class person. Because when you look at public safety, there's a direct correlation to public education. And we have to make sure we keep those things in mind, because this is one component. But police respond to issues. City Hall, we respond to things, and we try to be as proactive as we can and bring in ideas and policies to our city council, and they try to do the same with us. But at the end of the day, we have to make sure that we're all pushing forward to make this a better community and understanding the investment that we must put in public education, that we must put in wraparound services, that we must put in things that are going to make this community the best it can be, regardless of where you have to go in order to get that leader and to get the type of innovation and implementation that we need to fully make this community one that is best in class. And I believe that this is one component of that, one step towards that goal, and there are several others and many more that we'll continue to make. So I thank all of you for coming here today, and I look forward to, I'm about to say Captain Hour, but Chief Hour starting on next Monday, March 28th, and the new beginning that we'll have. And in between that time, we'll be able to talk about some of the things that we can all do to move this community along and to make this city the best in class that it can be. Thanks so much, and I appreciate you coming. Have a great day. Thank you. Yes, sir.